where of what the Blexit movement is. It's coined from the term Brexit, which is Britain leaving the European Union. European Union, guys. European the European Union, and Blexit is kind of coined from that, and it's just black people exiting the Democratic Party to, you know, show that there's another voice out there for black people, and that, you know, Democrats don't have you don't always have to vote Democrat if you were black, and that also you know, black people, they're not a monolith, and they don't all have the same voice. And I really appreciate this movement, even though a lot of people like hate black conservatives and they hate the rhetoric that black conservatives say, just because most black conservatives that you see in the media, they're Trump supporters, and people hate Trump so much that they're willing to, you know, call people that support Trump all sorts of names, especially black people that support Trump. They are going to call them coons, they call them Uncle Toms, they call them just a whole bunch of disgusting names. And the reason they do this is because, you know, they are so brainwashed by the rhetoric that the media spews that they are willing to, you know, talk bad about their own people. They're willing to divide themselves within their race.
Live this life of just like again, identifying as a Democrat but taking no action. And I got into a situation to where I couldn't afford to pay my bills because I was a full-time student and I was living in my own apartment and I was almost getting evicted. So I went to the welfare office and I was like, you know, I'm getting evicted. I need help. You know, I want to apply for, you know, the benefits, the food stamps, you know, and I paid tax. I've been working since I was 14, thank God, because it was hard on my mom. So we got a job until I was 14. We were able to make our own money. That was for us. So, I've been paying taxes. I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, now I could apply and get what I need because I can't work right now. I'm focused on school. When I went to the welfare office, they just were like, you know what? The fact that you're a full-time student in school, that's really not enough to qualify you for our benefits. The only way that you could get our benefits is if you dropped out of school and had a baby. So for me, it threw me off for a second because I'm like, wait a minute. I thought that welfare was supposed to be something that helped you grow. And for me, it's like, you would think because I'm a full-time student and I'm working on getting my education that I would be the first one they would want to help. But because I didn't have a baby and I was a full-time student, they wouldn't help me. That didn't make sense. So, I mean, I kind of kept that in the back of my heart, but I still didn't, you know, step up in politics like I was supposed to. And so I had a mentor. I met a woman, Edme Chavanes, my best friend, and she basically started to teach me about our history. You know, I didn't know that the Democrats were the ones who fought to keep slavery. I didn't know that Malcolm X and Booker T. Washington and all these other leaders, black leaders that we learned about in school were actually Republicans. Never knew that. So when she explained all this history to me, mind you, when I went to school, they didn't teach us this. We knew about the civil rights movement, but we did not know what party they were under. No, we didn't. As far as what I was taught in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so when she was telling me all this stuff, I'm like, whoa, for real? I did my research. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is true. Then she hit me with the worst thing of all, Lyndon B. Johnson's statement. When John F. Kennedy got assassinated and he stepped in, and of course he was fighting to win the next election as the next president for his next term. He said, I'll give those niggas enough. Not too much, but enough that I'll have those niggas voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And he was speaking about welfare. And when I looked up this information and seen that these statements were true and not alleged, let me tell you something about me. I like to be in control of my life. I like to do what I want to do. And I hate the feeling of being used. You ever found out you were being used and you didn't know it? And when you finally find out, you're just like, ah!
What's up, YouTube? This is Marty coming again with my view of the world. I just showed you two small clips or two videos that I kind of brought together. And the reason why I did it, because I see two young ladies who were being misled by Candace Owens and this Blexit movement. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. And I wanted to give these two young ladies a little history. You know, one young lady, she was talking about the Democrat being a racist party, which honestly, both parties are racist. They had racism going on back in the day. You know, it wasn't just the Democrat Party, it was both parties. Young lady brought up the fact that, you know, she was in college and she went for help and she went to the welfare office, which I don't know why she would want to go to the welfare office if she need help when she's in college. When, from my knowledge, you know, if you're in college, you need help, you go get financial aid, you know, grants and loans and stuff like that. So I don't know if that really truthful or not, but, you know, I'm not going to doubt her words, but I don't know if it's true or not. I'm going to leave it at that. Then she brought up the fact that Booker T. Washington and Malcolm X was Republican. Now, Booker T. Washington was a Republican, but the thing about that is, after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, a lot of blacks was Republicans. Matter of fact, the majority of blacks who was dealing with politics was Republicans. Now, I'm going to get to that later on, what happened, but you were right about Booker T. Washington. Malcolm X. Malcolm X was not a Republican. Malcolm X was not a Democrat. Malcolm X did not even vote. So that is false. I think a lot of people take Malcolm X's speech against Democrats and black people voting Democrat as that he was a Republican, which he was speaking upon that because at the time he was out there, that's who was in power, JFK and Lyndon B. Johnson. So that's why he spoke upon that. But after Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam, he pretty much softened his stance on black people voting because he really didn't believe in voting, period. But he softened his stance to the point where he was trying to get a coalition together in order to get a lot of blacks to vote independent to make the Republican Party and the Democrat Party earn his vote, on their vote. So that's where that comes from. So just to educate you. Now, a lot of people also, she didn't bring this up, neither one brought this up, but a lot of people in this movement, this Blexit movement, keep saying that MLK was a Republican, which is false also. MLK was not a Democrat or Republican. And I got a statement that he had said one time, and I'm going to read it to you. I don't think that the Republican Party is a party full of the almighty, nor is the Democrat Party. They both have weaknesses, and I'm not bound to either party. So that lets you know, MLK was not a Democrat or Republican. Now, with that said, and what I said before, I challenge these young people to do research. Don't believe Candace Owens. Don't believe Brandon Tatum. Don't believe Turning Point USA. Do your own research. Don't believe no one. Do your own research. Learn from yourself. Now, let me give you a little history about the Republican Party and black people and the Democrat Party with black people, because there is a lot of misconception out there that black people just were voting Democrat because of LBJ and what he said about the Civil Rights Act and about the welfare programs that he helped implement back in the 60s. Now, as I was saying earlier, with a lot of blacks after the Civil War was Democrats, which was very true. Up until 1929, where the Great Depression took place, blacks was voting Republican overwhelmingly. They was Republicans. But what happened was the Great Depression hit and FDR came to power, and FDR decided that he's going to help the poor people. Not poor black people, but poor people in general, because the country was devastated from the stock market crashing. Everything went haywire. Unemployment was up. Talking about this country was like in awful predicament. So FDR came up with the New Deal, which basically was a lot of social programs. You know, to help the homeless, to help get people fed, to help with clothing, housing, everything. And the Republican Party at the time thought that was a bad idea. That's when they started thinking about small government. They didn't want FDR to do those programs. They wanted pretty much, small government. They want hands off. So that's when black people first started voting Democrat, because of the programs that FDR brought about to help the poor people. Now, if you're poor, no matter what color you are, if someone comes along and says, I'm going to help you, I'm going to try my best to give you the programs that you need to survive in this country, what are you going to vote? Why do you think FDR won multiple elections? He was the last president to be elected, I think, 4 times? Or 3 times, 3 or 4 times? He was the last president. And the reason why? Because of the programs he put out. Not just to help black people, but to help all of Americans. So black people started voting Democrat a lot because of that. Now, let's move forward to 1964. There's a guy by the name of Barry Goldwater. He was running for president. He was a Republican. Now, this is where a lot of people leave information out. When you're talking about Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and all these other people, they leave this information. They leave this little information out here. Barry Goldwater was against the Civil Rights Act. Barry Goldwater was against civil rights, period. And the reason why is because he felt that was a state issue, not a federal issue. He felt that the federal government had no right to make laws to dictate to states how they treat black people. Don't quote me on that, but that's pretty much what it was. So when we said that there was not a party switch, there was. Because at that time, that's when a lot of Southern whites who was Democrats started voting Republican because of Barry Goldwater. I think there was even a name for it. It was called Southern Strategy. That's when a lot of Republicans started using the Southern Strategy to switch people over. So Barry Goldwater pretty much changed politics in this country because of the way he felt. So when Barry Goldwater did that, you know what happened? A lot of blacks start voting, more blacks start voting Democrat. So you got FDR programs that converted some blacks over to, that converted a lot of blacks over to the Democrat Party. Then you bring on 1964 when you had Barry Goldwater doing his little stunt where he was against the Civil Rights Act and he was against civil rights and he was for states' rights. So the southern states was like, damn, Barry, we on your side. So all those Democrats that was in the South, that was white Democrats, they started thinking about Barry Goldwater and his stance. So they were like, damn, we can start voting Republican. So that's where the South started turning red. But also that's when another 1/3 of blacks start voting Republican. I'm sorry, start voting Democrats. At that time in 1964, I believe 2/3 of blacks who was voted Democrat. But when Barry Goldwater did what he did, another third switched over to the Democrat Party. So that's why now you have probably 90% of blacks who vote Democrats, and that's the reason why. Those are the two reasons why 90% of blacks vote Democrats. Because of FDR and what he did, and because of what Barry Goldwater did in 1964. So that's a little education for y'all. So you don't have to believe me. Look it up. It's facts. I'm not going to mislead you. My job is to be a fact checker on Candace Owens and Turning Point USA. So young ladies, I ask you, I encourage you, do your own research. Learn the facts about what happened. How did we get to where we are today? is more complicated than what Candace Owens and Turning Point USA is telling you. Much more complicated. So do your own research. Stop listening to people and listen to yourself.